let's so we'll talk about the data. We'll talk about the book, right? So what I'm curious to learn from you is, so Fortune 1000 companies, how are they dealing with the current times? How are they dealing with when it comes to the innovation or the disruption that are happening in the industry? If you can walk us through from your vantage point, assisting these companies through disruption, through data-driven strategies, through building a data-driven leadership. What have been your stark observation that you are seeing in current times? Some of the challenges that they are facing.
Yeah, well, one of the major insights of the survey that we conduct each year, based upon our work with Fortune 1000 organizations, are that these companies are really struggling. You know, they're large legacy organizations. They have vast volumes of data, but it tends to be fragmented and siloed. And there isn't necessarily incentives that have been established across the organization to promote data sharing of any kind. So let me just share some data with you. We asked these questions. Are you driving innovation with data? In 2021, only 48.5% of these organizations reported that they were. Are you competing on data and analytics? Only 41.2% indicated that they were. Are you managing data as a business asset? Only 39.3% said they were. Have you forged a data culture? Only 24.4%. Have you created a data-driven organization? Only 24%. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there's a lot of work to be done, but that means there's also great opportunity. So organizations are striving and they're investing significantly in data initiatives and in data technologies and capabilities. But there's many challenges and there's a long way to go before these organizations can say that they're driving innovation, that they're competing on data and analytics, that they've forged a data culture, and they've created a data-driven organization. We can talk about some of those reasons, but the key factor that is creating such a demand for the data profession and the roles of the chief data officer today is that there's so much data out there, but organizations are really not fully capitalizing on the opportunities in front of them.
Interesting. And you talked about high churn rate in chief data officer, right? So you said some of the companies are in their 12th chief data officer roles, and if you talk to many of these data leaders, so what has been your observation? Like, why is there is no certainty or there is no stability in understanding a data strategy for these organizations?
Well, first of all, it's a new role. So it's not unusual in that regard because there's no blueprint or playbook to follow. So organizations are figuring it out. I can tell you that a few things. First of all, when major banks first established the chief data officer role in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, for many of those organizations, they thought they could hire a chief data officer and it was like checking a box and magically they would become data driven. And organizations have learned it's not nearly as simple as that. Another thing that's taken place is that organizations have unrealistic expectations of what the chief data officer can achieve. There's been no firm delineation of what the roles and responsibilities of the chief data officer is. Our survey shows that just under half of organizations in just under half of the organizations, the chief data officer is the primary leadership point and central point of responsibility for data, but in more than half of organizations, it's still spread out across other roles and responsibilities, be it the CIO, the CFO, and a quarter of organizations report that there's no single point of accountability. The last point that I'll mention right now is there's very different expectations for what makes a successful chief data officer. And actually organizations, it's like a pendulum switching back and forth. So many organizations, for example, have looked to bring in outsiders who are data professionals to be external change agent and bring new and fresh perspectives to their organization. But at the same time, other organizations have said, we really need an insider who knows our business and knows how to get things done within our organization. So one of the things that we've seen is an outsider is brought in, but ultimately they fail because the organization doesn't have the appetite to change that quickly. So then the organization reverts to an insider who knows how to get things done internally, but they don't bring that urgency and that change management agenda. So then the organization reverts back to the outsider, and we see this going back and forth. So that's one of the challenges that organizations face. They're really only a decade into this new role, and they're still learning.